As you may know, this is an event that's very necessary on campus right now because we've had a lot of issues with discrimination and generally with African American women feeling out of place on campus. So this is an attempt to mediate that issue and also to get open dialogue with people of all races, genders, religions, cultures, and sexualities. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
I'm Lakeisha Skinner, and I'll be moderating this event. I'm the communications coordinator for Feminist Caucus. I'm also arts and sciences center. So I will start from my left to right. We have Dr. Jennifer Jones. She's an assistant professor in gender and race relations, race studies. We have Khortlan Patterson, and she was junior at the University of Alabama. We have Shambria Davis, and she's Miss Dillon College for the 2014-2015 school year. We have Cassie Smith, and she is an English professor here. And we have Bria Harper. She's a graduate student studying in gender and race studies. And from left to right, or from my left to right, could you introduce, well, give us a brief bio, like your involvements in leadership positions and your role at the university or college? Yes.
Hi. My name is Jennifer Jones, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Gender and Race Studies and also American Studies. This is my first semester on campus, so I can't speak much to leadership roles and involvement here. But previously, I've been a member of the Black Graduate Caucus at Princeton University, where I finished my PhD in 2014, and then a member of the Black Student Union at the University of Michigan, where I completed my undergraduate work in 2007.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Khortlan Patterson, as Lakeisha was saying. This is my third year here. I'm part of the Honors College. I'm also part of the Theta Sigma chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I teach a class in the Honors College currently with Stephen Benson. I co-teach it, and it's called Deconstructing the Myth of Absence. And so what we have done thus far has been, first we kind of identified or made a working definition of what identity is and followed the track, like we tracked the birth of the Black identity in America and kind of followed it throughout slavery, Reconstruction, civil rights, and now we're kind of working our way into the modern era with the focus of, has it changed or has it not changed? If so, how has it changed? Is it positive or negative? So those are a few things I was doing on campus.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shambria Davis. I am a graduating senior at Khortlan College. And like Lakeisha said, I am 2014-2015 Miss Khortlan College and some leadership positions. It's pretty much Miss Khortlan. I am a part of the first non-Greek organization to exist on the campus of Khortlan College, the Chancellor Social Club. I'm also a member of Sigma Phi International Journalism and English.
Okay, again, I'm Cassie Smith, the assistant professor of English. This is my 5th year on campus, so yeah, I've been here now for a little while, and I actually see faces out there, people who I've seen before, so I feel like I'm a little more seasoned. As far as my work, I look at historical representations of people of African descent in American literature. So, like, I do stuff from Christopher Columbus up until the Civil War, 1865. And I am really grateful that we have this event tonight, because I'm hoping that this conversation is going to be really fruitful. I definitely know it's necessary, so I'm excited to be a part of it.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bria Harper. I am currently a graduate assistant and I work in housing. I serve as the community director for Tutwiler, and I'm also a graduate student in the Gender and Race Studies department. I graduated from UA in May. My previous leadership experience includes I served as the president of TRIOTA, which is the Women's Studies Honor Society. I was also vice president of the Sankofa Foundation, which put on the Black History Program. And I work with the Women's Resource Center on the Student Leadership Council.
My first question to whoever wants to speak first. Did you face any problems or issues at your university as a student or faculty or staff? If so, could you share with the audience? As a Black woman.
You said problems in general, or just
like issues that you know that stigmatize you or discriminate you because you're Black female?
I would say my first instance of running into some type of stigmatization. I'm from Houston, Texas, so to say that racism doesn't exist in Houston is a lie, but it isn't as blatant, I would say, as it is in Alabama. And I was pretty sheltered growing up and went to a lot of predominantly white schools. And so I never kind of worried about my identity as being African American. So freshman year, I was serving as a secretary of the Honors College Assembly and helping to set up for footage on the quad, which was an event that we threw, but it wasn't actually on the quad, it was on the rec fields, because it's very hard to do stuff on the quad these days, if you're not tailgating. And so we decided to set up, so we're doing it on the rec, and so I'm helping to go set up. I'm walking from Knott Hall up to the rec field, so I'm passing behind like ATO and some of those frat houses down University. And so I'm walking into broad day. There was a party going on, a day party, and this happens in the spring, so drinking was prevalent. And there was like a truck of fraternity members, I'm not really sure what fraternity it was, but they came out of their driveway and were driving down the street that I was walking down and just happened to yell like nigger at me as I'm walking down the street, and it just totally caught me by surprise. I had never been called this blatantly in the middle of the day, and usually I use it as a term like jokingly with my friends, or a term of endearment type thing, or in songs. And so it really caught me off guard, and so I think that would be the first time that I had ever encountered something on this campus that kind of set me in my place, so to speak, as an African American.
I think that's something that probably Jennifer on the end can agree with, is the problem of how we are read as faculty members, and both by students and other colleagues. So like it's really difficult to get people to take me seriously as a professor. So like when people look at me, they immediately assume that I'm a graduate student until I let them know, I'm like an assistant professor of English. And I had this really amazing episode that happened a couple weeks ago. I was out to dinner, and there was a former student of mine, so like I taught her for 16 weeks. And in the course of casual conversation, she asked me, so, how are your graduate studies going? Now, like, have you finished? Are you about to graduate? And I'm like, I taught you in a class. The first line on my syllabus is Dr. Cassie Smith, so like how is it in 16 weeks of my teaching you that you didn't recognize that I was actually the professor of record for the course and not a student in the course, right? And so she's not the first person to make that assumption, right? I mean, that is like, when I am approached, that is the default, that I'm a graduate student at UA. And so it's always having to say to people, no, I'm actually a teacher here, because I don't know, I guess there's the assumption that like we can't be professors, or what I like to assume is just that I look really young, but still, it's exhausting having to remind people every single day of what I do here.
Well, I can honestly say, attending Stillman College, a historically black college or university, I really have not experienced any discrimination as far as being an African American woman. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist on our campus, but it's not really at large as it may be here at UA.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add that on what Dr. Smith was saying about sort of being presumed incompetent. For those of you that know, it was a wonderful text by a number of women of color scholars just documenting the difficulties of existing in the academy as someone who was presumed to have the expertise to actually lead a class or be knowledgeable in their subject area. I think for me, I went to University of Michigan, so of course I experienced various forms of microaggressions from white classmates, but I think when I went to Princeton University, I wasn't aware of the intersecting nature of my identity and how being a black woman wasn't the only thing that set me apart. It was being a black woman who was the descendant of slaves, who came from a lower middle class background, who hadn't previously attended certain types of institutions, didn't have a certain kind of cosmopolitanism about them, that really set me apart. And so I think that today, I hope when we're having these conversations about what it means to be a black woman at a predominantly white institution, or even at a historically black college or university, that we keep in mind the diversity of experiences and challenges that we as a collective face.
What do you think are some problems that Black colleges will face at the University of Alabama and other PWIs? For anyone who wants to start first.
Can you answer one more time?
What do you think are some problems that Black women face at the University of Alabama and other PWIs across the nation?
I know for me, coming in as a freshman, I struggled with trying to find my place on campus. I was a part of the Blank program, which is kind of like a smaller liberal arts. College was supposed to be like liberal and they were supposed to like be very inclusive, but they were not because I was one of the few Black students there, and I would walk in the room and they would kind of like be quiet when I would walk in, and when teachers would ask questions, they would assume I didn't know the answer because I was the only Black student in the class, and of course I didn't read the material like my other colleagues. And trying to find organizations on campus that were inclusive to me, because as a Black woman, you not only struggle with bias among white students or other students, you struggle with bias among your own community, among other Black students too. So trying to find the balance of that was something that I really struggled with.
When I was getting ready for this event, I was asking, I live in the AKA house, which is located on Sorority Row. And so as I was getting ready, I was asking my roommate, who's also African American, what some of her experiences have been like. And so she shared with me a few of her experiences that kind of overlapped with mine. And one of them was like in the honors college, she's never had anybody else of color in her class. Like she's always like the only African American in her class. The class that I teach, there's only one African American girl besides myself who's taking the class. And I've definitely run up against that myself. And so she's experienced in certain parts of the class, like they'll direct questions to her about diversity or about being Black or of something of that nature. And so she's seen as like a figurehead or a spokesperson for the entire race. And so that's a problem that she's encountered, I've encountered. I feel like a lot of us have probably encountered that at some point. And also, like, speaking about honors college, as I've been talking to some of my fellow African American friends who I know are like intelligent and can do very well in honors college, but aren't in honors college, I asked them like, why aren't you in honors college? And a lot of people don't. A lot of women did not know that you could apply to honors college after you're already on campus. And so that brings up a whole other issue of not really being knowledgeable of the opportunities that exist on campus and taking like full advantage of all the things that are existing on this campus. And so I feel like African American women and males as well are at a disadvantage about learning about these opportunities.
Yes, I think I'll piggyback off of that comment too. And one of the things that I try to do in my classes is to make students aware of some of those connections. Because I think you're absolutely right that there are networks on this campus, and like either you are in the know or you are out of the know, right? And we know that a lot of this is driven by the sorority and fraternity system, right? And so when you talk about challenges, it's trying to figure out how to navigate those networks. And I think that that's one of the advantages of having faculty who look like us and, being aware of the fact that there are those networks to which you might not be privy, and trying to make those networks more accessible.
Okay, my next question, I guess to piggyback on what you just said, what do you think are some challenges put up against Black women on an administrative level or like the systematic discrimination in colleges?
Do I really have to say that now? Non-tenured
I guess I would speak as a student and talking with my professors. A lot of my professors that I had that I came in with in undergrad who were people of color, and there was men and women of color, they didn't last. They felt so much pressure just being a professor here that they felt like they couldn't thrive, they felt like they couldn't teach, they felt very stifled. And so as much as they loved us as students and wanted to see us do well, they could not survive here. And so they had to leave and go to other universities where they felt that they could be better supported.
Yeah, and I think that that's an issue that isn't necessarily University of Alabama specific. I mean, nationwide, especially for faculty, women of color, I mean, the rates of denial for tenure are really high, and higher than you would expect. And so I think that part of it is about this, again, presumptions of incompetence, right, from various quarters, but also the reality that, you all, I mean, this perhaps is isolated or as marginalized as you fall on this campus, sometimes you're turning to us as faculty for color for support, which is really important, but it also means that I think at times we feel overextended or sort of stretched, and also the administration is turning to us as sort of representatives of diversity to serve on committees to do that kind of service work. And I would also say that I think we're living, just to add a bit more to answer your question, I think we're living at a time when issues of diversity are under attack and affirmative action programs have been basically dismantled. There's an assumption that because, I don't really say this, but because Barack Obama's in the White House and we have Oprah and LeBron James, I don't know what you want to name, right? That we've arrived at this moment of colorblindness. And people really, of colorblindness and sort of post-racial America, and people really do believe that. And for me, one of the striking things is even how among students of color, that kind of narrative is so powerful. This belief in the meritocracy is so powerful that it means that it stifles conversations among people who are sort of at the heart of experiencing these various forms of microaggressions. Yeah, I'll stop there. But I just think we're living in a particular, I would say strong things about this, but we're living in a particular moment of cognitive dissonance about what does it mean to be a person of color on a college or university, and what are we being told that it is. So.
I just want to know, like, by a show of hands of the students in the audience, how many of you guys have had a class while you've been at UA that was taught by a black female? That's nice. So with those classes that you took that were taught by African American females, how many of you guys were more likely to go to that professor during office hours? Okay. And now, by another show of hands, how many of you went and talked to them about things that were not related to the class that you were taking with that professor? Don't be shy, raise your hand. So, like, the point I'm trying to make is that it goes back to what Dr. Jones was saying, right? Like, there's a handful of us on campus, and you don't get very many opportunities, right, to encounter them in classes. So when you do, you really want to take advantage of it, and you see them, right, as a chance, not just to find out more about whatever the particular subject is for that class, but also for, like, just professional development or just to connect in this larger university. So when you ask about the challenges facing faculty and staff, that's one of the challenges, is that, like, we realize that part of the job we do here is servicing and mentoring, even more than just simply teaching. I mean, like, my office is always open. I always have students coming in and out because that's part of what we do. And I think that job description is even more the case for faculty of color than anybody else. And sometimes we don't get tenure.
I think talking about, like, teachers, something that I've encountered, and like I said, I was talking to our roommate about, she's had teachers that have graded her harder, and she knows that they have graded her harder because she's African American. And she also has teachers that grade her easier because, I mean, she said that she was taking an honors college class, and she had a teacher who was, like, grading her so easy it wasn't even funny. And she was like, I guess he just was like, you're lucky to even be here. That mentality, and that's how it came off to her. He didn't say that to her, but I mean, that's how she felt. And so I think when we're talking about, like, some of the institutional things that are against African American women or just African Americans in general, teachers and, like, grades are definitely a huge part. I'm very paranoid about the teachers that I take, how I'm perceived in class. It makes me feel as if I have to, try harder than some of my other fellow students because of my grades.
Anybody else want to add on? Okay, so my next question, what are some perceived generalizations that are placed on black women that could correlate with the generalization and stereotypes placed on black college women?
Wait, repeat the question.
What are some perceived generalizations that are placed on black women that could correlate with generalization and stereotypes placed on black college women?
I remember a particular experience. I shared this with Dr. in my class when I was in high school, and we had our first Black substitute teacher. We didn't have any. I went to, it was called Jefferson County International Baccalaureate School. It was ranked like one of the top high schools in the nation. And our graduating senior class was about 60 people. And so I was a sophomore in math class, and my math teacher did not like us. Like, he would openly berate us in class. He would know we didn't have the answer and would call on us knowing we didn't know how to do the procedure. If I asked questions, he would ignore me. And so he happened to be out this one particular day, and we had one Black substitute teacher who was a guy. And so all of us who were Black, it was like 5 or 6 Black students, we kind of congregated to this substitute teacher because it was the first person who really understood our experience and was willing to hear us out. And I remember my teacher coming back from wherever he was, and he walked into class, and he sees me sitting there with another group of students, and we're talking to this Black substitute teacher, and he blatantly accused me of having a sexual relationship with this substitute teacher in front of class. And I feel like those type of generalizations about sexuality and the sexual body of Black women is something that transfers over to college, of how Black women's bodies are generally sexualized, and how if we ever advance, it's because we had to do something, not because of our merit or because we might be intelligent, it's because we did something to earn whatever spot we got.
I think that's a very good point, Bria. I've been to a few parties that I've been to Black parties, I've been to some white parties, and something that I've got at a white party that was really interesting to me was I really can't dance, y'all. It sounded funny. I cannot dance, and so I was trying to dance to the song, and one of my, I guess we're friends. I'm not really sure now where we are. At the time we were friends. Comes over to me and he's like, "Girl, you're not even dancing. You need to shake that Black booty," and just was saying I need to twerk or something like that. And I was I don't even understand what you're talking about. So I mean, the over-sexualization of Black women is definitely seen in this sphere of social, not even just kind of in the classroom, but also how we're perceived in a social setting. I've had friends who've been to some white fraternity parties, and the things that I hear are just horrendous as to how they're perceived and how some of the fraternity members might come at them. And it's very interesting if it's always okay for Black women to be at a party or so at a fraternity thing, but let it be during the day, let people be not intoxicated, and then it's a problem. Yeah, that's just something that I've seen now.
And I think too, the stereotype of the angry Black woman is just something that's common.
Yes.
And assertive, and I think in some context masculine in a way, and that being perceived in a pejorative sense. I mean, I think I experienced this most profoundly when I was an undergraduate, and it really kind of scarred me in a way where I was afraid to actually be assertive in class because I didn't want to be read as that Black woman talking about race and gender and all of that. So.
And I would like to add on to that from personal experience I had recently, where two professors thought I was being disrespectful on my emails, and I wasn't. Everything I said was very nice, but I'm so serious. But and they told me it was the rudest emails they ever received, and I had other people to look at, and they said they didn't say anything rude about it. So I feel like they must have assumed I'm the angry Black girl in class. So I definitely feel that.
And the most terrible thing that does is it scares people away from talking about the issues that really need to be talked about. You don't want to broach topics of race or inequality or stuff that happens to you on campus because you don't want to be seen as that person who continually brings up race or continually brings up this issue. And I mean, people tend to not listen to you anymore. And I mean, I don't know. It's a terrible phenomenon.
And I know that I work for the housing department, and I work in Tutwiler, which is predominantly white. sorority dorm, and I have always been pressured by my boss and my professional staff that I have to tailor how I talk to my residents. I have to tailor how I talk to my staff because I don't want to offend parents. And so, like, I don't know if you know anything about housing, but it's a very customer service based department. And so if I address a student for their bad behavior, I am normally in the wrong because I have addressed them wrong, because I have offended them, or I might potentially offend them. So I have to tailor that because I can't be seen as angry. I have to make sure that I'm always putting on a presentation of being nice, even when I'm at work, which is very interesting.
Anyone like to add on to that? My next question is two questions in one. How did you rise above the generalization and stereotypes placed against you? And what is your advice to Black women who are in college who face those issues as well? How did you rise above the generalizations and stereotypes placed against you? And what type of advice would you give to Black women who are in college facing the same issues or similar issues that you face being a Black woman in college?
Okay, I guess like I really didn't want to touch on the angry Black woman thing. Like I have a real long spiel that I can give, and I'm trying not to. But like you know, to talk about ways to get through it, right? So at the end of every semester when we teach, right, students fill out their evaluation forms, right, and it particularly for women and for women of color who are faculty, those evaluations can be a really fraught process because that's the place where those students who throughout the semester were pissed off about being taught by a Black female suddenly show just how pissed off they are, right? So they do things like call you lazy. You know, they say that you are the worst teacher ever. You know, that like you have no business teaching here at this year. Like it's just a really passive-aggressive form of evaluation. So one thing that I've had to like balance or work my way through in the 5 years I've been here is how to finesse my interactions with students. And this kind of goes back to what Bria was talking about and how you deal with the girls in the dorm and their parents, right? About like there's this quote that I love from the singer Monica, right? A few years ago, she was giving this talk, this interview, and it was about the fact that, like, you know, when she first came out, she dropped an album when she was like 14, right, which is insanely young to be a singer. And so then, like, she took this years-long break, and then she came back a few years ago with another album. And so the journalist was asking her, you know, now that you're a lot older, what would you tell that 14-year-old Monica that you've learned in the last 15 years? And she said the thing that I would tell her is that you can't cut every throat, right? And I just thought, that's perfect. You know, it sounds really aggressive, it sounds really in your face, but her meaning is the exact opposite, right? That first of all, you have to pick your battles. And just because somebody else comes to you with a fight doesn't mean that you have to engage it, right? And then, even once you decide that you are going to fight the battle, you don't have to do it with blunt force. You know, like you can take a really soft, like finesse touch. And so that's what I've been learning how to do in the 5 years I've been here. So that if a student in, like, you know, we talk about microaggression, if a student addresses me as Miss Smith or even worse by my first name, or if they assume that I am the TA for the course instead of the professor, like I don't immediately jump in and correct them, you know? Like I may go stand up there in the front of the class and in a really passive-aggressive way remind them that their grade at the end of the term is up to my discretion. It's just trying to find ways to nuance the encounters so that you aren't seen as aggressive, but at the same time reminding them that you do have a certain authority that comes with years of education and credentials and whatnot. So yeah, that's what that would be my advice. So remember that you can't cut every throat. And use a soft touch every once in a while.
It may seem like I'm quiet, but I'm really just taking everything in because a lot of stuff that we you all may encounter here, I have not encountered at Stillman College because it's an HBCU. Now I can honestly say we have a lot of diverse professors at Stillman, and I know I have one particular professor, and she's actually a Caucasian woman, and when I say she's like one of the sweetest women you could ever meet, so I mean, I'm just really astonished to hear a lot of the things that you all are going through. Like, granted now, I do have this one professor, and she actually teaches African American history, and she's a Caucasian professor. So, like I said, a lot of stuff that you all are going through, we don't really too much go through at Stillman. Now, I think one thing that we do probably tend to go through at Stillman is trying to be, how can I say this? Trying to be better than the next African American woman. It's oftentimes where, you know, you have some black women, instead of trying to reach and, you know, help the next black woman, it's also, well, she's at this level, let me try to see if I can move her out of the way. And I can honestly say, being Miss Stillman, it's one of those positions where I've learned a lot about myself. I learned that, like she was saying, I have to pick and choose my battles, and I know one of my advisors for being a student at SGA, she told me, she was like, well, Shambria, you're in this position now where you have to not change who you are, but tweak who you are as a person. Tweak who you are as a person. Tweak how you may say certain things or how you may act, and that's just not even, I don't know, just how to, just basically tweaking who I am as an individual. So I really, like I said, I don't experience that nature of stillness.
Did she give you any specific examples?
She basically told me, like, to give a brief story, I went this summer to Savannah, Georgia, and it was basically Savannah State University. They had a conference for all the HBCU queens and all the HBCU presidents. And I'm from a small town of Valley, Alabama. I don't know for those who know that, but I'm from a small town of Valley, Alabama. So I guess you can say country. You know, we don't talk slang, but then again we do. We don't really just pronounce our words, you know, clearly and stuff. So she told me, she was like, Sham, you're Miss Stillman now, so you have to clean up the way you talk. And I'm sitting here like, okay, well I understand I may have to tweak what I have to say, but I'm staying true to who I am as a person. I know I have this title on me, and I know that I have to represent the college to the best of my ability, but I'm not going to try to compete to be better than the next African American woman when I already have my position here, and I'm just going to shine my light and be the best Shambria that I can be. So.
I suppose one of the things that, a few of the things that I've kind of taken or I've done to cope or rise above some of the discrimination and stigmatization I've been faced with. I mentioned earlier that I was teaching a class on Black identity. I've found that teaching, I guess, and educating people about, well, I'll start with this. Everybody's a product of their environment. And yeah, you can get angry at that person and go off at them, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be seen as that angry black woman, and their view isn't going to be changed. They're going to go on doing the same thing that they've been doing. And I mean, you can look at media, you can look at music, literature, like just the ways that African Americans are portrayed is very conducive to the situation that we find ourselves in. And so I think that if you can kind of deconstruct this identity, this negative identity that media puts out there that people have been inundated with about Black culture, kind of deconstruct that, like, well, first educate yourself about how far African Americans have come, what experiences are really like. You know, some of those, like Maria Stewart, just a lot of people, a lot of thinkers from that time period, like from the past, who influenced how we think about Black identity, and just also had to cope with these same things. Looking at what other people did in the past has really helped me to figure out how I'm going to deal with it. But I just choose every moment to now be an educating moment. So I try to turn whatever negative thing happens to me into a positive thing. a kind of best outcome, if you will, for that person and myself. It's kind of like for me to keep my sanity, because I can't live with the idea that people will not change their ideas, or will not change as a person. I honestly believe. And then another thing is that I've become really a lot more spiritual. But I really believe that people can be changed, and that nobody really wants to be racist and offensive. But like I said, people are just a product of their environment. So realizing that and figuring out how you can best work with that is probably one of the most important things that I've figured out for myself, and has helped me personally. Oh, and also being proactive. So be proactive. When I say be proactive, I mean like be proactive about your education, be proactive about the things that are going on campus, because you cannot rely, like we're sitting up here talking about the experiences we had with advisors and teachers, you can't rely on people to recommend things that are the best thing for you. Like only you know what you want to do, only you know what you would thrive in, what type of condition you thrive in. So be proactive in seeking that condition. Be proactive in making friends with other African American women. We talked about a lot of opportunities that aren't available to us that we don't know about, is because, I mean, honestly, there are so many amazing African American women on campus that are doing great things, but you may never know them because of, I don't know, insecurities, because of the fact that African American women are portrayed to not come together and be, like, I guess, cohesive, but rather we try to tear each other apart. We see each other as competition for like a male, I don't know, just competition in general. We can go into things, but I mean, and Beyonce isn't helping, you know, Bad Out Bitches isn't helping. I mean, when I say you're a product of your environment, you can change your environment. Like you can change the media that you intake. It's all like input-output type way. I mean, that's how the brain works. The more you input, the more positive things you input, the more positive things you'll output. And so if you aren't happy with the way that you view yourself, or you aren't happy with the way that you become so hostile towards other African American women, stop listening to music that makes you feel that way about women. Stop watching TV that tears down other African American women, and start like looking at things that build each other up, and like past people, like I said. And I mean, history is such a great thing. It's very interesting how history has been taken away. Especially African American history has been taken away from the like regular education system. Like you don't learn about half of the people, like not even half, like you don't learn about a good tenth of the African Americans that made this country what it is. And I believe there's a reason why. Like, I mean, you can speculate as to the reasons, but we're in this situation because we don't know our history. So learning your history, I believe, is the best thing you can do for yourself.
The only advice that I would be able to give, something that I'm still struggling to learn, is to try your hardest not to internalize. I think a lot of things are thrown at us all the time, but if you internalize it and you dwell on it, you will find yourself consciously trying to control or police your own behaviors to try not to be an angry black woman. And I would also say, learn yourself for yourself and create your own identity, and don't allow society or other people to box you into stereotypes that they would have for you.
My next question is, how do you think UA and other PWIs can handle their relationship with its black female students and faculty and staff?
How to retain more black female professors.
Two, I would say provide greater resources to have the kinds of academic and social support that students of color, probably black women in particular, feel like they need. So, for example, University of Michigan, there's a multicultural center. That's a real important space for students of color, especially women of color. Is there a multicultural center here? So I was just checking. So, the administration to provide spaces like that. But the reality too is that those spaces aren't just going to come out of thin air. If students, you all are the consumers, right? So if you want those spaces, if you want those resources, you have much more power than any faculty or staff, I would dare to say. So if you want those things, you have to ask for them, but also mobilize to get them.
I would say like the way the university handles like I don't know, I guess PR would be a good way to say it. There's like a few instances that I've had in my mind that I wanted to bring up. Like the few cases of, I guess they're white women who have like falsely accused some imaginary dark-skinned man of trying to kidnap them. Like how does, I'm trying to, and then it was funny, so in the police report, it'll be like, okay, so this event happened, and then 45 minutes later, it'll be like, okay, we figured out that it's not, the victim said that it wasn't, so, okay, why is it still a victim? Why is she a victim still? Like, a victim of what? She did the crime. So, I mean, but it still makes you think of some dark-skinned male did a crime because she's still a victim. Like, it's still kind of in that language. When Dr. Bonner, okay, when that Kaio scandal happened with the text or the Snapchat that was like, Kaio got no niggas or ninjas, or, I mean, I think it was, I mean, definitely was niggas, but there was an argument that it was ninjas. The email that was sent out from Dr. Bonner's office was, okay, yes, this happened. We realize that it's not a good thing, but let's not take this, but let's not let this take away from the fact that we've pledged 20 or so African American women. And it's just kind of like, okay, first of all, that's like 0.5% of the population. I know we have to start somewhere, but it's just the language that's kind of put out there. I think the administration definitely needs to look at that. PR representatives, I don't think they need to be fired, but maybe you need to go through some type of diversity training of how to cover issues like this. And another thing too is, okay, so yeah, Kaio had that little scandal. I mean, there's a lot of scandals about sororities not letting in African American women prior to like last year. But why are all these sororities getting these humongous houses? Like it's kind of like they're being rewarded for the behavior that they've had for the past 100 years. And so, I mean, it's just kind of like these implications. I'm not saying that they shouldn't get bigger houses, but it's like, where did they haven't been reprimanded, really. Like there hasn't been some type of statement against, you know, the actions that they've had. It seems that they just keep getting rewarded for things that shouldn't be rewarded. So yeah, I think those are a few things.
Anyone else like to add? Okay. I have some questions that are specific to Shambria, but if anyone wants to jump in, you can. And they're basically like some of the same questions that I already asked, but I will still touch on again. With you being still in college, what are some issues that you face as a Black woman at HBCU? Because I know like at PWI, it's probably mainly race issues, but at HBCU, could you tell us like some issues that you see or some issues that you face? Because I know like it'll probably be like different experiences or like similar experiences. So could you share with us?
Like I said, I haven't really just faced any issues. The only thing is basically just redefining and tweaking who I am as a person. I can honestly say, coming in and still in college as a freshman, I was the type that wore my hair in a wrap, sweatpants, and jeans. That's how I was when I was a freshman. And kind of sophomore, junior year, when I started realizing this was something that I wanted to pursue, I had to change my image, so to speak. So just pretty much my image, and like I said, I wouldn't necessarily not necessarily say compete with the next African American woman, but at the same time compete with the next African American woman. Basically, you know, thinking, oh well, she thinks she's better than everybody else. Now, granted, you do have those underclassmen who I can honestly say look up to me, not only as Miss Stillman, but as just basically being regular old Shambria. Another thing that I feel that Black women face at Stillman, and I'm pretty sure at any other HBCU, is the whole thing of trying to fit in with the next person. To piggyback off she was saying as far as, you know, twerking and stuff, I know at Stillman it's implemented that every Thursday we have to dress professionally. And it's basically to get us ready for the professional world, and that's something that's implemented every Thursday. And if you do not have your professionally dressed clothes on, you're not allowed to go to classes, or you're not allowed to go out of your residence halls. We don't call them dorms, but we call them residence halls. But we just have a problem problem with girls going to classes thinking that a bodycon skirt is professionally dressed. Yes. So I can honestly say, just as Stillman, females not really knowing their self-worth and trying to pursue this image that a guy sitting outside thinking that they should look like, you know, the innocence. So yeah.
I think too, like to add to that, because okay, so I graduated from an HBCU, right? Many moons ago. And what I remember about my experience there is a lot like what you're talking about at Stillman, and it can be articulated in the concept of politics of respectability. So it's this idea that everybody in this environment is supposed to police everybody else to come up with what is an appropriate representation of blackness that you then project to, like, you know, the mainstream, right? So I think that that kind of politics is especially oppressive for black women, particularly because of what you've been saying about the kinds of stereotypes that we have to deal with. So going back to what you were talking about, Shambria, about the way you talk and how your, what did you say was the advisor who said that you're going to have to tweak a couple things? Like, you know, it's all about how somehow the way you grew up wasn't good enough. Like, there is some kind of image of what it means to be a woman that black women fall short of. And sad to say, sometimes just like within our own communities, we are a harsher judge of how we fall short than people outside of the community. And I think that on black campuses, we are especially vulnerable to that. Not that, I mean, well, of course we are there at UA too, but yeah, that's something that I think Stillman and UA have in common.
My next question for Shambria is, can you give us some perceived stereotypes and or generalizations people make about HBCUs versus PWIs, especially with the way they perceive black women?
I can honestly say with HBCUs, I'm not gonna necessarily say that. We don't have too many advances that you would if you went to a predominantly white institution. We have at any HBCU and at any college or university, you have problems. But it seems like in an HBCU, it's always something wrong with financial aid or the business office. Or I know at Stillman, any other HBCU, we don't get our refunds on time. I know at UA, I think, or either at all universities, as soon as you enter school, your refund check is like 3 weeks in. At Stillman, I know we don't get our refund checks about a month or two after we, came to Stillman. So, I mean, I don't know. I can honestly say being at an HBCU is an amazing experience. You learn a lot about being an African American woman. People generalize and stereotype us as all being the same, and we're really not. It's a lot of people. I didn't grow up in the best of households. I only had a single parent, it was my mother. So with that being said, I've seen black women who've had both their parents, and I've seen a black girl or a black woman who didn't even have neither of her parents, she just had a grandmother. So it's amazing to be in an HBCU and see different types of African American women all coming to an HBCU with the common goal of trying to get our education and advance to the best of our abilities.
One of the things that I think UA's black community that we are guilty of is that because we attend the PWI, we think that we are better than students who attend HBCUs, not realizing that we're in the same struggle, we're in the same fight. And I know within the black, especially black females, among black females, I think that there's something that we are better than them because we attend UA, when really we're still facing the same struggles. There's not that much difference. So
I'm going from like a Greek perspective, like being AKA on a PWI campus is, it comes under I mean, it's kind of the inverse of what you're talking about, Bria. It's, you know, no longer seen as superior to this, you know, HBCU, but now I'm paper, or I didn't go through as rigorous process, or I'm not the same AKA material as someone who's coming from an HBCU. So I think the plating of superior and inferior in different realms definitely helps to divide us in some ways. And I mean, I was talking to Shambria just now and asking her if she's AK, because I don't know still many AKAs, which is sad to say because they're literally right around the corner. But it's just these different, I guess, views of each other. Doesn't even like we're in the same sorority. Like we should not in the same sorority, but but like me and Stillman AKAs, we're in the same sororities. We should be sisters, but we still have this internal feud that doesn't allow us to come together, you know, in the ways that we need to come together, honestly.
My next question is, how can the University of Alabama and Stillman College improve this relationship? Especially, how can Black women at both colleges improve their relationships with each other?
Just interact with each other more. I can honestly say I drive by UA campus and stuff, but this is my senior year, and I've been in Tuscaloosa 2015 going on 4 years, and I have yet to know anything really about the University of Alabama. So I can honestly say just build a relationship. Like I know Stillman is literally right down the road. Don't be so scared to come on our campus, and then vice versa. I know me, I'm not saying I'm scared to come on y'all campus, but it's just too big for me. And I was on the phone with Lakeisha and I was like, I don't know where I'm at. But I know back in years past, before I even thought about coming to Stillman, it was just talk about how a lot of UA students used to love to come to Stillman campus, used to love, like I know at Stillman we have what is called Hastening Parties, and it's basically like any organization on campus can throw a Hastening Party, and it's basically our activity center on campus where I know like a lot of degrees, I know the AKAs just had their week and they had a party on campus and stuff, and I know it used to be a time where some of the sororities at UA used to come on Stillman's campus clubbing like different parties and stuff. So like I said, basically just reaching out regardless of if you go to PWI or HBCU. Like she was saying, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we are Black women trying to make it. Whether you're at, like I said, a Black school or a white school, we all trying to make it and trying to be the best that we can be.
How many people from Stillman do we have here? Anybody from Stillman besides Shambria? Did we send flyers? I mean, I'm assuming that we advertised it, right?
We did.
Okay.
Okay, my last question for Shambria, since nobody's like intended from Stillman, but I'll still ask, what advice would you give to Black college women at Stillman College and other HBCUs to rise above the generalizations and stereotypes placed against them being an HBCU student?
I can honestly say read more. I oftentimes feel that being a Black woman at an HBCU, we're subjected to just staying at the norm. And I can honestly say just sitting here and listening to each of the panelists here encourages me to do more research as far as, you know, different events, and also expanding on my vocabulary as well, because I feel like if you can be an African American woman and expand on your vocabulary, that just makes you better than the next white woman. You see what I'm saying? No offense to anybody in here. So the advice that I would give to a woman, a Black woman at any HBCU or at a PWI is, first off, know who you are, figure out who you want to be as an African American woman, and take the necessary steps needed to be the best person an African American woman you can be.
That just resonates with me. I spent a lot of my time, I said I went to like a PWI type school, like I went to a very elite private school, and I was there for like 7th through 9th grade. And during my time, I absolutely hated myself. I hated being Black. I'm half Asian, so I hated the fact that I wasn't fully Asian. I hated my curly hair. I never wore my hair down. If I did, it was straight. I listened to a lot of death metal music. Like, it was a really bad time for me. I hated myself, and that made me hate almost everything. And so going along with kind of the idea of embracing yourself and figuring out who you are and who you want to be is so important, because you're going to waste your time hating yourself. You'll never be white, you'll never be this or that, you'll never be a size 2, like you'll never be. And so just for personal experience, like the faster you can come to terms with who you are, the faster you can start improving yourself and making yourself better for the next person who, I mean, we're all college students and we all know, like, Central High School, all these high schools around here, like there's so many African-American girls that look up to us and we don't even know about it. And so hating yourself is not going to help that girl. It's not going to help, you know, your cousins or your little sisters. So just reiterating on that point.
And to piggyback off again, I'm done. I know, when I was campaigning for Ms. Stillman, I was trying to think of what my platform would be. What would basically seal the deal for who I am. And I ran off the platform, perfectly imperfect, embracing your imperfections. And I know oftentimes, like, it was a time where I didn't have that much confidence within myself. I honestly did not think that I was going to be Miss Stillman College, because I ran against 2 young ladies who are now my attendants. And when I say they had the looks, they had the hair, they had the talk, they had everything down packed. They had even the money to campaign and stuff. And like I said, here I am, just this not average old female, but this basically just average girl who wants to be a positive representation of Stillman College, coming from a single parent home, who is struggling just to campaign. And I can honestly say, by the grace of God, everything planned out to my favor. So I can honestly say, like, just give back to the community. Like, I know 2 weeks back I went to Hope Elementary School, and it's just amazing to see how there's so many little girls that look up to African American women. So I can honestly say, just reach out to the community. And being a small population on campus, African American little girls and black girls, they need to see that whether you attend an HBCU or the University of Alabama, you do feel this sense of, you know, sincerity, and you want to reach out to them.
Okay, my next question, and this will be a general question to every panelist. How do you feel about the black female image and the body images of black women, especially being perceived like through the media, and how black women and how black women, I guess, are influenced by it.
I honestly don't like it, because I'm not going to sit up here and be a hypocrite. I do sometimes listen to Beyonce, and I sometimes listen to Nicki Minaj, so I would be a hypocrite if I said I don't listen to them. I don't honestly like how we are portrayed in the media, because you have a lot of people that don't have the strong mindset of knowing who they really are and knowing the difference between this is how I'm supposed to dress and this is not how I'm supposed to dress. Like, you never really see any white women in the media twerking, or you never see any white women in the media just have dressed, and if you do, it's not really frowned upon. Now, if you see somebody black, it's like, oh, well, this is her place, this is what she's supposed to be, this is just the norm for her. So I really don't like it, and I don't understand it, and I don't see why we as African Americans still degrade ourselves. And it's drawing from not only the TV, but in reality as well. I see it on campus a lot of times, where it's girls who have their shorts where you can almost see their, you know, blood and stuff. And like I said, I don't know, it's sad, and I don't know, yeah, it's pretty sad.
Recently I posted on my Facebook, like, this article of, like, bell hooks and like, I forgot who else was on the panel, but other, like, black feminists talking about Nicki Minaj and Beyonce, and I was just like, yeah, I'm taking the stance that Shambria is taking, in the fact that I'm kind of embarrassed by their performances. I understand that you, and I wouldn't say like a whole, like, there was 20 or so comments on my Facebook page talking about how what I'm saying isn't, like, because they're black women doesn't mean that they have to act a certain way, that's respectability politics, and we don't have to do that, also there's stuff. And I was like, I understand that, but what about the kids? Like, what about the people who, like you were saying, who don't have a good sense of themselves, or who are going to fall into, you know, fulfilling that stereotype that was set up during slave times? Like, the sexualization is nothing new, and so why are we playing into it? You know, Beyonce has a daughter, like, what is that gonna, how's that gonna affect her daughter? And then, I mean, someone posted on my page and was like, okay, it's not Beyonce and Nicki Minaj's job to raise your kids, and I was like, okay, that's a valid point, but regardless, like, they're still infiltrating the media, they're still, you know, impacting how people view themselves and how people view black women. My boyfriend he worked at Home Depot, and there was an African-American woman who was working, one of his coworkers was going to the restroom, and I believe a white customer, male customer, came up to her and I think slapped her booty and was like, oh, like look at that booty, followed her into the bathroom and gave her his number. And so, like, I mean, like I said, people are products of their environment though. So if you're looking at my anaconda, like all this other stuff, like if you're a white male and this is all you see of black women, then I mean that behavior is okay. So I'm just really frustrated with falling back into this same stereotype and not thinking about how it informs other women around the country and how other people kind of interact with them. I mean, I understand that people can do whatever they want. Like, I'm not telling you to not twerk or not listen to Beyonce or this or that, but when you're doing this, or, you know, when you're taking, I guess when you're, I don't know, just in everything that you do, just remember that our race is falling, like it's literally dying out. Like, I mean, I wrote a paper about how America's perpetrating genocide against African Americans. Like, this is not a new idea. There's been genocide papers like submitted to the UN about how America's committing genocide against blacks. And like I said, look at your history because it's all there. So when you're doing these things, just keep in mind that that's happening and how your actions can kind of inform that. We're talking about what you can do on a personal level to kind of help the cause or whatever. But I mean, if you start to view yourself as a role model, then I guess act like it is my whole take on this.
You know, okay, so I'm gonna push this in the other direction, right? Because quite frankly, like, I don't listen to Nicki Minaj, and I used to listen to Beyonce back when it was Destiny's Child. And so, I am struggling a little bit here to really understand what the problem is with Beyonce particularly. I can see a little bit of the Nicki Minaj stuff. Oh, okay, I mean, you know, like, she is a little bit extreme. But anyway, I'm thinking about, like, with the example you were talking about the man who taps a woman on the behind or whatever when she's walking into the restroom, like, it's not her problem. It's not Nicki Minaj's problem. It's not Beyonce's problem. It's the problem of this guy who decided it's okay to tap her on the behind, right? So I guess what I'm thinking is, like, if we want to address the problem of, like, how we perceive black women in the media, essentially, like, black women are a manifestation of the problem, but like they don't create the problem, but it's like you come to them with the expectation that they're the ones who are responsible for fixing it. And they're not. You fix the problem at the source. So you go back to this white guy and you figure out what is going on in his mind that makes him think it's okay to treat women that way. And we can say, well, yeah, he thinks it's okay because of what he's heard in the Nicki Minaj song. Human beings are not that simple. I mean, you know, like a song does not lead you to certain, you know, perceptions or whatever. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if we want to address this problem, let's go to the source, as opposed to putting all this pressure on black women to fix a problem that we didn't create to begin with. So, yeah.
And point, I think it's a larger issue with, I mean, as you said, kind of representing the race, right? That black people, but black women in particular, always feel this burden that we're constantly being read for our race and our gender. And so there's a way in which that not only means that pursuing a certain kind of pleasure politics or a certain kind of sexual pleasure as an individual can be damaging to the race, right, from a white gaze, but it has ramifications, I think, within Black communities as well, not only insofar as how, for those of us who identify as straight, how we're perceived by Black men and how our bodies are supposed to look, how we're supposed to receive certain kinds of solicitations for whatever, right? But two, for those of us who maybe don't identify with the kind of Black heteronormativity, then where's the space for us within the broader Black community, right? So, I don't have an answer. I was in Nicki Minaj and Beyonce too. I find them deeply problematic, but at the same time, it's like, where is the space for us as Black women, regardless of how we identify for our sexuality or sort of gender expression, where's the space for us to just be and to just kind of enjoy our bodies, enjoy our sexuality? I should say, I'm just straight, I'm sexual when politics work in the civil rights movement, right? So this is something I deal with all the time, kind of this tension. So it's quite frankly, thanks for hearing me, guys.
I was going to add on, pertaining to white female images, like natural hair versus relaxed hair, and like our skin tones.
I'll start with natural hair tip. Is the question just sort of what are some of the issues, or is the team natural, team whatever?
I guess the issue is facing women who wants to go natural versus women who still get their hair relaxed. I know some women who may go natural, they see it problematic that women continue to have their hair relaxed because they feel like they're insecure about their hair, that it's not straight enough. They want their hair to, I guess, feel like white women hair, or easy, like, I guess, like managing easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole conversation is so problematic because, I mean, so I've been natural since 2005, right? And I think there's a way in which originally when the natural hair movement began to kind of take shape, there was this idea that, oh, if your hair is natural, you somehow love being Black more and you're embracing the true ethnic, right? But the reality is that the ways in which products are marketed and the ways in which, if you go on YouTube and type in natural hair, these conversations are unfolding. It's all about having a certain kind of curl pattern, you know, being able to have a certain kind of length, right? Or not necessarily work. Kind of myopic to say that, oh, well, if you have straight hair, you don't embrace who you are, and if you have natural hair, that you do, because these same Eurocentric standards of beauty continue to replicate themselves within those conversations. So,
if no one else has anything to input on this, my last question, what issues have you faced in dealing with Black men at college or the workplace? I guess piggyback off what you just said, how sometimes Black men help perpetrate the bodily image that's I guess that's supposed to be portrayed by Black women, like they should be shaped a certain way, have their hair a certain way, get a certain height, and act a certain way too.
I honestly say, like, how my mama always told me, it's how you carry yourself. So if you're gonna wear short shorts, tight, shirt, then you're gonna attract a guy who doesn't really care about you. And he's saying this, that, and third. But if you carry yourself the way that you want to be treated, then you're gonna attract the right kind of guys. Now, I know it was a time when I was on campus. I think it was my sophomore year, and I was walking between the two residence halls. It was Mills Residence Hall, and it was King and Williams. And I was walking on campus by myself, and I was on the phone with one of my guy friends, and some group of guys was at one of the male halls, and he was like, hey, and I didn't respond. And he was like, well, all right then, bitch. So you see what I'm saying? So it's not like the whole saying is not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So I just moseyed my way on down. Residence hall. So it's just basically how you carry yourself. And sometimes you can still carry yourself to the best of your abilities, and you still have somebody that's ignorant that's just going to and holler at you. So it's just what you answer to and how you carry yourself.
guess to piggyback off of that, I think black men, or men in general, play a part in kind of reinforcing the negative stereotypes as far as the angry black woman and hypersexual. I know I've been accused of being intimidating because, you know, I am who I am. Like I don't really know. I feel like I'm a nice person, but I can be very blunt and to the point, and I don't tolerate disrespect. So I feel like that is labeled as, you know, being angry, and I think that it's problematic to label all men or all black men as a certain way. It's the same way that we don't want to place all black women in a box. But I think if we're just talking in generalization, there is a specific stereotype that black women are supposed to have as far as like male-female attractions, and if you don't adhere to those politics, then you are punished in a way, or you are labeled as not acceptable or not attractive. Your hair is natural. For me, that has been an issue, having natural hair, because that is not seen as attractive as someone who's relaxed hair. So I feel like that's a conversation that can go on and on, because there's so many different specifics about what is and is not. So
I'm going to answer that, specifically what we were talking about with hair, right? So, like, I dated black men and I dated white men, right? And so, like, just to use the hair as an example, right? The black men I dated all, like, my hair's permed, it's been permed, you know, since I was 15, and I don't know how long I keep it permed. I might do it for another 2 decades, I don't know. But, so they all like the idea of me having permed hair, right? Because it's a little bit longer, right? It has a little more body. So, like, black men love that. They're all about that, right? White men are like, oh, you know, what does your hair look like, you know, when it's natural or whatever, like, so they don't want the perm, right? Because, I mean, I don't know, I guess they think that one of the advantages of dating a black woman is that you get a different hair texture, I don't know. And my takeaway from all of this, which might be an advantage of me having seen a few more moves than most people in the room, is that ultimately, not contributing to these stereotypes and whatnot, I think ultimately it's about what we are willing to accept. So Bria said, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So, I mean, that's what it goes back to.
If anyone might want to add on, like take some questions from the floor, if they want to ask the panelists.
So we hear a lot about the perspective of, you know, as being an administrator or coming in a position of teaching at the university, but what the issue internally I struggle with is being in the class, you know, so a lot of times you have these controversial conversations, and often like you have to represent the whole black race, and then you have the whole class going against everything you believe in. And you're trying not to act out, but in a lot of times I find myself getting docked off in my grades and on my quizzes, on my tests, because I'm going to give my standpoint, I'm going to give my position, and I'm trying to communicate that effectively to my class that I don't agree with what they're saying. And I find that it's hard. It's like I'm battling my teacher and my classmates. So what are we supposed to do in this instance?
I mean, that's tough. I would say, based on personal experience in my studies, one, if you think the faculty member is receptive, talk to them privately about how you feel marginalized in class and that your perspective isn't being received or at the very least respected. If you don't think the faculty member is receptive to that, I hate to say this, but you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the point is to get through the class. Yeah. You can keep it moving with whatever else you want to do. And so you have, I mean, that's not to say that you should just let every single offensive comment slide, you should in quotes, right? But you have to emerge from that class whole to the degree that you can. And so that it means not, as my colleagues have reiterated here, you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, this is what Dr. Jones was saying, where, like, you live to fight another day. So, like, if it's a class where it's particularly difficult for you, like, you feel like you aren't being heard, then, yeah, you just get through it. I mean, you know, like the saying is stepping and fetching, right? And to some degree, to get through the system, you may have to do that. And then once you have your credentials, and you're in a position to make the system better for a student 5 or 10 years down the road. So, I mean, it's just tough. Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I'll start off by saying, everybody has their own perspective. perspective that everybody has on the type. For instance, I happen to like non-relaxed hair, or however natural hair, whatever you would say. But say, for instance, that I prefer a woman to have perm hair or longer hair. How do I approach my fellow black, my black sisters with that preference? You know, that's my type. How do I approach you in that way without saying to you that I don't value you unless you uphold those standards?
Can you say a bit more about the context in which you would want to make that statement? Like, is this someone you're interested in sort of being romantically involved with, or what?
Sure. So it's not necessarily like I meet someone and say, this is my type and you should fit. That's not obviously not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But you know, people have their preferences. So you know, for example, say that you have a girl who wears a weave sometimes she maybe wears her natural hair, and I'm an acquaintance of this girl, and I say to her, I like when you wear your weave. I like, you know, you look better that way. Or what if I'm talking to a black female and I say, you know, I like light-skinned girls better. How do I have that preference? Is that okay for me to have that preference? And how do I have that preference without?
It's okay for you to have your preference because we all have our preference. I like my men to be tall, so and you could possibly be short. So with that being said, we have our preference, but I guess it just basically goes to how you approach it. And how you approach the woman. I mean, it's been times where I've talked to a guy and he's told me, well, you know, I really don't want you to wear a weave. I want you to wear your natural hair. And positioning your statement to where it sounds genuine and not that you're trying to tell her how you want. Basically not molding her to the perfect woman that you want her to be. So I don't know how to really address it, but you're entitled to like and date whoever you want to.
Sure.
Yeah, like, you know, like, at the end of the day, here it is, like, if you prefer light-skinned women, then that's who you approach. Like, you don't
My point is not in necessarily a romantic relationship. Maybe I'm having a conversation with a black friend of mine, and I say to her, I like light-skinned girls.
Oh, okay. But, just like in the run-of-the-mill conversation, you're saying, here's what I prefer to date. Oh, okay. I thought you were proposing to go up to some girl, ask her out on a date, and then tell her to put weave in her hair.
Obviously, I'm not going to approach a girl that's not already attracted to her.
So many questions. I can only take 3.
Take them all.
I think I see. Okay, can you ask me that you want to? So go ahead with yours.
Alright, to piggyback off of Biden, which I know we were talking about Beyonce and Nicki Minaj, especially when Nicki Minaj talking about this Anaconda video, and you see more and more celebrities that have bought a bigger bottom, a bigger butt, like Khloe Kardashian, Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Tiny, like, you know, they all remind me butts to 50 standards that black women or any woman of color are supposed to have a huge butt and it's supposed to be voluptuous and bodacious and all this crap that came around due to certain people who fit these molds. And it's kind of hard for these certain black women who don't have these stereotypes. So it's like, how do you tell someone to be comfortable with who you are instead of you have to fit these molds from just being skinny, or now you have to be thick in the waist and, you know, be thick on bottom, slim in the waist.
It all just goes to knowing yourself and just, you know, embracing your imperfections. I know I wasn't, I'm not the thickest and I'm not the skinniest, and I had to learn that over time. Being 22 and about to graduate, it's still some things about myself that I'm trying to work on, I'm trying to fix. So it's basically getting to yourself. First off, praying, you know, asking God to basically just show you who you are destined to be and who you are supposed to be, and just mold you to be the best person and embrace your imperfections and work with what you got.
I think another point is just like surrounding yourself with people who appreciate who you are for who you are. So if you have friends that won't hang out with you unless, I don't know, like your hair is straight or something like that, like, that's not the type of crowd you want to be around, or that would feed a positive body image.
How has your skin tone defined your experience within your own community? I know especially in like the past couple of days, I've gotten a lot of assumptions that I must be half white or I must not be black because of my hair not being like a 4C or something, or because I have a lighter skin tone, like I have to be white or something, you know, something of that nature. And I know you said you're half Asian, so it's very like confusing to me when someone wants to assume that I've got to be black and white, or I have to be black and Hispanic because I speak Spanish, or, you know, something of that nature. It's like, how do you, like, within other black people, like these are black people coming to me and telling me who they think that I am racially, and it's like, but that's, I feel like that personally takes away from my blackness, so I don't know if that is something that you also like deal with.
I would say, like, growing up, I would get a lot of, like, oh, you must be half Asian because of, like, when my hair was straight, like, I looked, I guess, like I was half Asian. I got that a lot from the black community. And that ultimately kind of made me feel as if I couldn't fit in with the black community at all. And so I was kind of like in this limbo for, I mean, when I was growing up, I was just kind of like, and then, like I said, I went to a lot of predominantly white institutions. So I got like Oreo, Whitewash, like all of these names from some black Muslim brethren. I mean, it wasn't necessarily boys, it was just like black people. And so, I don't know how I just kind of embraced my little weird limbo area, I guess, and just kind of, I told you I can't dance, like, I mean, there's parts that I feel as if I kind of fall short of, I don't want to say the black image or the black culture or whatever, because I'm kind of like making it a one culture, but the generalized view, I fall short of that sometimes, and then I don't fit in the white category, although I do like rock music and this or that. So, I mean, it's just kind of, I've just become really comfortable with who I am, and I've found that, I mean, going into AKA, I was really kind of, not skeptical, I would say cautious, I guess, about how some of my sisters would perceive me, like would they see me as being fully black, like would I get anything about, oh, why are you in black sorority if you're not black, like that type of stuff. But I didn't get any of that. So my sisters, I mean, to my knowledge, love me, and I love them. I mean, everybody kind of appreciates me for the weird, unique things that I bring to the table. And so I've kind of started to own that myself. And it makes me look forward to seeing the weird and unique things that other people bring to the table too. And kind of made me aware of the fact that not everybody's the same. And so, I mean, it kind of worked on me as well as kind of helped me out as well.
I was wondering how you all felt about the devaluation of black women, but the uplift of the image of black women. Like how some guys will be like, you know, I only want to date white girls if she has the body of a black girl. Like in today's time, we have like, you know, the Iggy's, we have the Kim Kardashians, we have Khloe Kardashian. So I was wondering like how you felt about when I hear it, I feel like, first of all, some people say it's like, oh, well, if you say you don't want to date black women, that means you hate your mom if you're black. I don't think so. I feel like everyone is entitled to date whoever they want to date, whether they're purple, blue, or green. I don't care. But the thing is, you know, how do you feel when guys say, you know, like, oh, only if she has this type of body? Like, it's like you want the black woman without having everything that the black woman may come with, whether you see that as an attitude, which is, I feel like is the main issue, that, you know, I just can't deal with the attitude. Well, don't bring me issues that So I was wondering, like, how do you feel about it?
I don't know, I guess it's just like you were saying, And I really just think it goes towards, you know, that attitude, like we've been saying the whole time up here, it's just so stereotyped that African American women have an attitude, but you gotta think about it. We, well, not necessarily us, but our ancestors have been through so much, and it's not that we have an attitude, but we're not gonna just take any little thing, whether you a black man, a white man, an Asian man, or whatever. So, I mean, it's kind of like having your cake, trying to have your cake and eat it too. You don't want the black woman, but you want the black woman's features, but you don't want the black woman attitude, but you want the white, I don't know how you want the white woman attitude, but what is the white woman attitude?
It's like, what do you go, I don't know, like, just go look at pictures of somebody. Then you
I don't know, you just, I guess it's what you love, I don't know. But then it goes to say, well, do you want the black woman with the white woman's figure? I don't know what it is.
I feel like, I forget her name escapes me right now, but it was the African American woman where they just like, they were just consumed with her body. They can make it, was it like a body cast after she died? And they were like, they would put her like on shows, and they would have these white men and women just come up to her and just stare at her, just like, yes, they would poke her butt. I mean, it jiggles. I just don't understand, like, there's just a fascination about the body of African American women, but it's like they want that, people want that, but they don't want all the other things that come with it. And all those other things I think are great things that maybe other women of other races, they may lack because they have not been through all the things that African American women have gone through. Maybe like I myself have not gone through the things that my grandmother went through. But I know, so therefore I act a certain way. Like, I'm not to let you step on me because she refused to get stepped on.
For me, understanding the historical context of the relationship between black men and white women helps me to not be phased by it. Understanding that the traditional image of the male black men as the black male rapist, and how the ways that media has always portrayed black men as being attacking white women. And so now in modern times, I think that because white women were on this pedestal that black men could not have, it's kind of like the pleasure you're seeking, something that you were not able to attain historically. So I think, for me, that's just my personal opinion. Please feel free to disagree. But I think that it's kind of that I'm eating the forbidden fruit. So now that I can get white women, I'm going to go after it. And so I'm not really phased because I feel like that's what you want, get it. But I just understand the historical context and the relationship of black men and white women and all of that.
And just to, I mean, this isn't actually directly to answer your question, but something I think it's important to keep in mind is how, I think for many black women, we embrace this idea of the strong black woman, but how that can also be really crippling and debilitating and not allow us to acknowledge that maybe we need help, or we're dealing with some mental health issues, or we feel vulnerable, right? And so that's not a critique, I'm just saying that I think we're talking about, you know, black men don't want a strong black woman, that whole construction, which is what it is, even though it might be historically it's emerging from a historical past place, right? That is also very restricted to us. So.
I can only take one last question. I think I see your labor.
Hey. So, hello, hey, great panel. My name is April, and I wanted to kind of take it back to the academic side. So I am a graduate student here, and I'm a graduate assistant teaching undergraduate introduction to women's studies. And I know that something that I was very conscious of when I knew that I was about to teach 150 students was that my whole life in undergrad, well, when I was growing up, I grew up in a city that's like 98% black people. Then I went to historically black college. So honestly, I was spoiled with black people around me. And a lot of the experiences that I hear other black people had, I was like, I'm so glad I didn't have to go through that. But when I came to UA as a predominantly white institution, even in my department, there's a certain type of very liberal and progressive politics. So when I knew that I would be teaching undergraduate students, I was very conscious of like my blackness and my womanhood, but also my black womanhood together. And I was conscious of how everything I said would be perceived as, well, she's saying that because she's black, she's saying that because she's a woman, she's saying that because she's a black woman. And because I know that historically and currently, that is something that black women and black people face in the academy. Like, oh, you can't speak on that because your blackness will give you a certain bias, or your womanhood will give you a certain bias. So like, how do I present the material to the students to where I am showing that I'm both not presenting a bias, but at the same time I am, in the sense that everyone presents a bias, but we don't ever recognize like the white male bias. That is just seen as the standard. Right, so.
I'm sorry.
I think that the answer to that is what you said at the end of the comments, is that you acknowledge that everybody has these biases and you call out that white male bias. You know, because I mean, like, at the end of the day, right, like, we are governed by a certain kind of intersectionality, right? I mean, like, and I embrace it. You know, like, when I teach my class, I let you know, like, I'm a black woman, and the way that I read Langston Hughes, or the way that I, you know, read Toni Morrison or a white writer is based on my own experiences, and I don't apologize for that. But what I do is I open up the class and I invite everybody else to bring in their perspectives as well, and you just, you know, you have a conversation about how all of those identities inform whatever the topic is. And so I say don't avoid it, just embrace it and call out everybody's, you know, not just yours. Yeah.
I know in the class that I teach, especially when we come to like kind of more controversial issues, what I try to do is not assert it from like my perspective. Well, first of all, the first day I had the teacher, I co-teach the class, so we both presented a kind of like, I don't want to say, what's the word? I don't know, it was pretty much just like we were just saying like, I guess it's a disclaimer, that's all it is. It was a disclaimer, and we're just like, okay, we're not trying to make huge statements about white people, we're not trying to degrade the white race, we're not trying to do this or that, but this is what happened in the past, and then I've tried to get like different historical perspectives or different literature to kind of assert the point that I wanted to assert in the first place, but I just know that it probably wouldn't come from, you know, it probably wouldn't be as received as a historical document, like a first-hand account or something, so that's just something that I've done, is to present other perspectives as well. It's mine.
I would echo all that, but I would also say that assume that you may lose some of those people regardless of what you do, because they're just not in a place to receive it. And point two, I mean, and this goes beyond teaching, right? Kind of the old adage of you have to work twice as hard to be seen as just as good, and it's problematic in all kinds of ways that I won't get into over time, but when you are teaching, be as prepared as you can be, so that if someone does challenge you, you're ready with that answer. You're ready to get right back into the material, right? So.
Because they will try.